Many of the Trump nomination hearings that we've seen and covered over the past week have been concerning for a number of different reasons. But I don't think that any of them have been so obviously chock full of deception and ignorance and evasion as that of Betsy DeVos, the billionaire who's been nominated to become the next Secretary of Education. The woman who has no experience in education, who's going to be leading that department. And so we've got a number of different videos that we're going to show you of prominent Democratic senators grilling Betsy DeVos and revealing how ill-prepared she is for this position. But we're going to start off with Bernie Sanders. And so Bernie Sanders is going to frame his question around one of his favorite topics, that is money in politics, the oligarchy, and how she is perhaps a representative of that. Let's watch.
Mrs. DeVos, there is a growing fear, I think, in this country that we are moving toward what some would call an oligarchic form of society, where a small number of very, very wealthy billionaires control, to a significant degree, our economic and political life. Would you be so kind as to tell us how much money your family has contributed to the Republican Party over the years?
Senator, first of all, thank you for that question. Again, was pleased to meet you in your office last week. I wish I could give you that number. I don't know.
I have heard the number was 200 million. Does that sound in the ballpark?
Collectively, between
over
my
the years,
entire
yes.
family, that's possible.
Okay. My question is, and I don't mean to be rude, but do you think if you were not a multi-billionaire, if your family has not made hundreds of millions of dollars of contributions to the Republican Party, that you would be sitting here today?
Senator, as a matter of fact, I do think that there would be that possibility. I've worked very hard on behalf of parents and children for the last almost 30 years to be a voice for parents and to voice for students and to empower parents to make decisions on behalf of their children, primarily low-income children.
Oh, devastating. Betsy DeVos, meet the people's elbow, because it just landed right on top of your head.
I'm surprised she didn't faint from the blood loss from the stabbing that she just got right there. And look, she said she's been an advocate for the children. No, she's been for not only for charter schools, but beyond that, for government funding of religious schools, which we'll get into a little bit later on. And as we've talked about in our coverage of Betsy DeVos leading up to today, she has never taught at a public school. She didn't go to a public school. She hasn't sent her kids to public schools. But she is going to lead the way towards diverting funding away from those public schools, shutting down in the process many of them, to hand that money over to private, for-profit institutions, many of whom will have a religious mission and orientation towards their education policy.
I just want to be clear. You know, the Secretary of Education doesn't run private schools. They run the public schools.
Yeah.
So when I say they run them, they oversee them on the federal level. Now, they're not there being the principal or the superintendent of any of those local schools, but they're in charge of the public schools. So the fact that she has no experience whatsoever with public schools is a note of concern, which then leads back into Bernie Sanders' question. Now, if you don't have any experience at all in running public schools, or even attending public schools, or even walking by a public school, right? And you have no experience in this field otherwise, and yet your family gave $200 million to the Republican Party. The Republican president gets elected. In this election cycle, they gave $2.7 million to the Republican Party. And voila, all of a sudden, we have Betsy DeVos in front of us vying to be the Secretary of Education. You think there might be a connection. Now, it doesn't really matter how she answered that question, because any American that sees that exchange goes, oh, I got it. I know why she's there. It's not complicated.
Yep.
And it's not just Democrats or liberals. Almost every Republican that sees that goes, I know why she's there. And it ain't because she's an expert on public schools or on education. She's never worked in education in her whole life. She's there because her family gave hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not complicated. We know it. Yes, Democrats sometimes give ambassadorships to Luxembourg, sometimes even to France for donors. It happens, and I hate it. Now, this is as clear an example as you're going to get that, hey, if you give money to these corrupt politicians, they will give you whatever you want. In her case, she wants to make sure that she funnels money into private schools, charter schools, and religious schools, which is not what you're supposed to do as Secretary of Education. So her job is basically to destroy that department, and she paid a lot of money to be able to do that.
That's true. Now, Bernie Sanders is also going to ask her about one of his signature policies from his run in the Democratic primary, that being making college tuition free.
Some of us believe that we should make public colleges and universities tuition free so that every young person in this country, regardless of income, does have that option. That's not the case today. Will you work with me and others to make public colleges and universities tuition-free through federal and state efforts?
Senator, I think that's a really interesting idea, and it's really great to consider and think about. But I think we also have to consider the fact that there's nothing in life that's truly free. Somebody's going to pay for it. And so,
yes, you're right. You're right.
so
Somebody will pay for it, but that takes us to another issue.
I think
and that is, if I may, and that is right now we have proposals in front of us to substantially lower tax breaks for billionaires in this country, while at the same time low-income kids can't afford to go to college. Do you think that makes sense?
Senator, I think if your question is really around how can we help college and higher education be more affordable for young people as they anticipate.
Actually, that wasn't my question. My question is, should we make public colleges and universities tuition-free so that every family in America, regardless of income, will have the ability to have their kids get a higher education? That was my question.
Senator, I think we can work together, and we could work hard on making sure that college or higher education in some form is affordable for all young people that want to pursue it.
Okay, so this is Betsy DeVos basically as Bernie's asking the next question. Oh no, here it comes again, people's elbow.
Well, Senator, if your question is something that I'm comfortable answering, no, it's not. That's not what it was. I just asked. I'm 75 years old. Even I remember what I just asked you.
So I was wondering if he was going to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's not the question he asked. And normally they let him slide.
Yeah.
Not Senator Sanders. He's like, no, actually that wasn't the question.
Yeah. Well,
and so I want you to understand this other wrinkle, which is very important. Betsy DeVos is a billionaire. So when he asks, hey, you say we don't have money to give free college education for equality of opportunity, but we do have the money for tax cuts for you, a billionaire. Now, he didn't get that personal. I would have, right? But I think that a lot of that was not lost, certainly at least on the senators. That's why I would have made it clear to the whole American public. So the bottom line is she's saying, no, I want my tax cuts for billionaires like me.
And she'll get them.
And so if that costs your kids' education and equality of opportunity, what do I care? That's why I bribe the politicians, to get those tax cuts and to get this position, and so that I could do my personal proclivity on, making sure that religious schools, of the religion I like, by the way, get more funding and private schools get more funding. And your kids, hey, look, even a Republican, Lisa Murkowski in Alaska, she's like, we don't have a lot of choices in Alaska. Basically, we got public schools.
Yeah,
so are you going to focus on those? Meh.
Yeah, and when you think about the change in life from what changing different policies would cost for different people. So you make tuition-free public college. Those kids now get to go to college. Drastic change to the entire rest of their life and their descendants' lives, going down generations or hundreds of years. She has $2 billion, let's say, and as a result of higher taxes goes down to $1.7 billion. Her quality of life changes how? How does it change? It doesn't change, but she is still going to sit there and say, F all those kids, they don't get to go to college, I want a marginal, I want to be the 96th richest person in the world rather than the 97th, and I'm willing to screw over your family to do it.
So on just one of the Trump tax cuts, the richest people in the country, of which she is in that class, would get, on average, a $7 million tax break per year, okay? So if I was Bernie, what I would have done, or any of those senators, is I would have finished her. And now this is very rude, and the media would have said, oh, I can't believe you made it personal like that, right? But I would have figured out, on average, how much she is going to make from the Trump tax cuts for 4 years. And my guess is that is, she's a little bit more than, since she's a billionaire, a little bit more than the average of 7 million times 4. I mean, you're looking at around $50 million.
Yeah.
So you're saying we don't have money to give middle-class kids a free college education, but you are personally going to make $50 million from the Trump tax cuts. I just want to get it right. Is that what you're saying? Because that's my question. The corporate media has multi-million-dollar anchors. We have you guys. Go to tytnetwork.com/go, and you can help hire investigative reporters that'll do real journalism.